So we're going to get right into our program here today. So Julien Fedon of the Fedon's Rebellion of 1795. Julien Fedon, he was the leader of the Fedon's Rebellion. We're going to talk a bit about who exactly he was. But the Fedon's Rebellion broke out on the night of March 2nd, 1975. The official start of the rebellion was on March 3rd, 1975, and the rebellion ended on June 19th, 1796. So just about a year was the duration of the rebellion. So the rebellion is goes down in the history books of Grenada and even across the broader Caribbean. The rebellion was the attempt to create a black republic. So in that period of time, there was slavery was still in existence. There was slavery across all islands of the both the British and the French Caribbean islands at the time. Grenada, in fact, was under British rule during the Fedon's Rebellion. So Grenada, dating back to just to go back to our previous episode we had about 2 weeks ago, Grenada was under French rule for two periods of its time. The first period was for a duration of 114 years, ending in 1763. And then the second period was for a period of 4 years from 1779 to 1783 thereof. So it was two periods of time. The other periods of time, Grenada was under British rule. So at the time of the Julien Fedon rebellion, Grenada was under British rule at the time. So Julien Fedon, he was really sought out to create a black republic. And this whole thinking about black republic, um, it began with in France with the French Revolution and eventually trickled down to Haiti, of course. Haiti is an example of a successful rebellion in which Toussaint Louverture was able to achieve independence of Haiti, and that would have occurred in 1880 in the 1800s or early 1800s, right? So Haiti would be an example of that. So what Julien Fedon did in Grenada in 1795 was in that period of time whereby there was this fight for islands to get independence from the colonial powers. Not independence as is independence achieved in 1974, because of course slavery was still in existence and all those things, but to become a free, independent black nation. Most importantly, independent black nation. So the Fedon's Rebellion was an attempt to create a black republic in Grenada. Fedon himself was a free person. He was born into freedom, and we'll talk a little bit about his background shortly. So Julian Fedon, his aim was to free Grenada from British rule and to bring equality to French colonists in Grenada. So many of the people living in the Grenada at the time were French colonists, and because of the rules of the period of time, they were denied equality in the same at the same level as that of those who were British colonists living in Grenada at the time. So Julian Fedon wanted to free Grenada, make Grenada a free black republic, and to bring equality to those who were French colonists or consider themselves French living in Grenada at the time. So who was Julian Fedon? I'm just gonna take a quick break because I see some comments coming in here. So I know some people saying hello and good night. So I just want to say good night. Good night, Veronica Sandy. Thank you for taking our program this evening. Good night, Chamali Mattis. Good night to you. and hope that you enjoying the program. We're getting started looking at Julien Fedon today. So good night to the folks saying good night, and thank you for viewing our weekly program of Island Learning Grenada. So who was Julien Fedon? So Julien Fedon, his parents were Pierre and Bridget Fedon. Pierre Fedon himself was a Frenchman. He was born in France and lived in France. He was a jeweler by profession, and he left France in 1749 and came to the island of Martinique. Martinique is a French colony. It still remains a French colony today. It's not an independent island. It still remains under French rule. So Martinique and Guadeloupe are the two islands within the Caribbean which are still under French rule and have been under French rule for hundreds of years. So Pierre Fedon, originally from Bordeaux in France, arrived in Martinique in 1749. While in Martinique, he met Bridget, who would later become his wife. Bridget was actually a slave. She became free, but she was a slave. So she was black. Pierre was white, and Bridget was black. And together they married. Pierre and Bridget Fedon. They married in Martinique. So those were the parents of Julien Fedon. Pierre and Bridget Fedon, Pierre of being from France, so true French blood, and Bridget, a former slave from Martinique. The couple would move to Grenada in or around 1763, so they left Martinique and came to live in Grenada. When they arrived in Grenada, they established life in Grenada as free. They were free persons. Bridget was no longer a slave, and of course, she was married to a free man. So they lived as free persons in Grenada. They were not slaves; they were free people. Um, and they owned Grand Poivre Estate in Saint Max. So Grand Poivre originally was the name of the parish of Saint Max. It's no longer called that, but that's what the French called the parish, meaning great poor or big poor. So they owned Grand Poivre Estate, which was a small coffee estate located in the parish of St. Max. So they became estate owners, and they too themselves had slaves working for them. They were not slaves. I mean, Bridget was used to be a slave, but Pierre, of course, was French, was white, and they were free people. So they started growing coffee and had a coffee estate, and of course, themselves they had slaves. At this time, Grenada um no longer grown, but Grenada would have had coffee was grown. Cotton was also grown in Grenada at some point in time. There was also indigo grown in Grenada too. So one of the upcoming episodes of Island Learning Grenada, that's probably gonna be a topic to look at some of the agricultural crops that were grown in Grenada and today are no longer grown in the same magnitude as it was many, many years ago. Coffee being one of them. So Pierre and Bridget had 8 children. That's what the historical records show. They had 8 children, and Julien was one of the 8 children. It is not known if Julien was the first child, which order Julien fell in. There's some accounts that claim that he was, sorry, here. There were some accounts that indicate that he was the first child. Others that indicate he was the second child of the 8 children. Nevertheless, he was one of the 8 children that the couple had. His parents were free, so Julian was born a free mulatto. And the word mulatto was used at the time. It's not no longer a word that's so used across the uh, the dictionary or the vocabulary or the speak of when we speak of mixed people. But mulatto essentially means the mix between black and white. So a mulatto person is a person that has one parent that is white and the other parent that is black. So in that period of time, that's what the definition of what a mulatto was. So Julian Fedon was a mulatto because Pierre Fedon, his father was white, and his mother, Bridget Fedon, was black. She being a former slave. So Julian Fedon was a mulatto. He was born into freedom because his parents, of course, had free status in Grenada. So he was free. He was not a slave and he did not grow up as a slave. He grew up as a free mulatto. It is believed that he was born before the couple came to Grenada, so he would have been born in Martinique and raised in Grenada. But the accounts are not 100% accurate in terms of if that is true or not, whether or not he was actually born in Grenada and is 100% Grenadian. Nevertheless, we claim Julien Fedon as a Grenadian and recognize the Fedon Rebellion of 1795. So let's take a short break and we'll be right back as we continue looking, of course, at Julian, who he was exactly as a person. So we'll take a short break. And of course, during the break, continue to share the program, hit the share on the live and share the program so that we can reach a broader audience. But let's take a short break and then we'll be right back to continue looking at who exactly was Julian Fedon. So we are back. We are back, and we're going to continue here, of course, looking at Julian Fedon of the Fedon's Rebellion of 1795. So Julian Fedon, what next is known about his background. He married a woman by the name of Mary Rose Caverland in the year 1774. Officially, that's what was the year of their marriage. Records also indicate that they later remarried in 1780. They had 2 daughters together. So Julian, his wife Marie, and his 2 daughters, um, they were involved in the Fedon's rebellion. Both Julian and his wife, their children were young at the time, but Julian and his wife Marie were both involved in the Fedon rebellion of 1795. Julian, similar to his father, Pierre Fedon, made his living from being an estate owner. So the first estate that Julian owned, he and Marie together owned the Lancer estate in St. Mark's. And later they bought the Belvidere estate in Belvidere in St. John's. And the Belvedere estate was bought in the year 1791, so just 4 years shy of when the Fedon's rebellion would break out, Julien became the owner of the Belvidere estate. So he was a free mulatto and also an estate owner. On the Belvedere estate, Julian and Marie, they were slave owners. They owned about 100 slaves um, who worked at the Belvedere estate. So there were about 100 slaves who worked at the Belvedere estate, and they would form some of the forces that would fight with Julian Fedon during the Fedon's rebellion of 1795. The Belvedere estate, the estate owned by Julian Fedon, would become the headquarters of Fedon's rebellion. So the Belvedere estate would become those headquarters of the Fedon's rebellion. There was also Fedon's camp, which is located towards the north, close to Mount Qua Qua. That would become the campsite for those who were fighting, part of the army and the forces that made up um, the Fedon's rebellion group. So Fedon's rebellion was the fortified camp of Julian Fedon during the revolution. The camp is located of north of Mount Qua Qua. So it's very, 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 very high. So 2,509 feet is the height of Fedon's camp. And today you could actually go and hike, right? So groups and tourists and other persons go to Fedon's camp and do a hike up to Mount Qua Qua and visit Fedon's camp. So that's an activity if you're looking for an activity with something historical in mind to do. That's one activity that you can do. You can take a hike up to Mount Qua Qua and then go just a bit north of it and visit Fedon's camp. Fedon's camp. So the Julian Fedon or the Fedon's rebellion broke out on the night of March 2nd, 1795. So on that night, forces were mustered together and the rebellion itself started in La Baie, meaning the Bay, it's a French word, which is today Grenville in St. Andrews. So Fedon's rebellion started in Grenville in St. Andrews, and it would spread across Grenville, Telescope, St. Mark, St. John's. So so it spread from Grenville to other portions of the island of Grenada, St. John's, Gouyave, etc. But the start of Fedon's rebellion was in St. Andrews, the parish of St. Andrews, on the night of March 2nd, 1795. As mentioned, at the time in 1795, Grenada was under British rule. So there was a British governor in charge of Grenada's affairs at the time the Fedon's rebellion broke out in 1795. And it was a situation in which the island was split between those who were free people and those who were slaves. So there were many more slaves than there were free people. Slavery was still in existence. Slaves were working either on sugar plantations or coffee plantations, scattered across the island of Grenada. But the society was made up of these two sets of people: free people, people like Julian Fedon, who were free, they were living free lives and had the rights of free people. If they were French origin or French citizenship, they did not enjoy the same rights as those who were British origin or were British colonists on the island. So that was one of the points of dissatisfaction. The whole that they were unequal. There was this inequality existing in Grenada between those who were French and British, and also between those who were free and those who were still enslaved. So Julien Fedon, as leader, he was able to get the support of those who were free and also those who were slaves to support him in uprising against British rule and the British governor at the time in Grenada. So the estimate is there were about 1,000 free people on the island of Grenada in 1795, and there was about a total of about 30,000 persons who were still slaves or enslaved people living in Grenada at the time of 1795 and the outbreak of um, the Fedon's Rebellion. So just a plug, if you're loving our content, ensure that you follow our Facebook page, Island Learning Grenada. So you hit follow on our Facebook page. If you're viewing from another stream, you can check out our Facebook page, Island Learning Grenada. You can follow our Facebook page and you can also like our Facebook page. And if you are watching via YouTube, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Island Learning Grenada. So let's take a short break and we'll be right back, continuing to look at Julien Fedon and the Fedon's Rebellion. So we'll be right back. Right. So hope that you're following us on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. You have subscribed. So just to wrap up on the Fedon's Rebellion. So I'm just going to read a bit here from this book. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here. So this is the book. Uh, it's it's A to Z of Grenada Heritage by John Angus Martin. This is a very, very excellent book on Grenada's history and heritage. If you're looking to read more, learn more on that book, you can definitely purchase it. I think it's available on Amazon as well as at the Art and Soul Bookshop at the Spice and Land Mall in Grenada. If you are in Grenada, if you are in the diaspora, you can check out Amazon, both the Canada Amazon as well as the US Amazon, and purchase this book here. It's a very excellent book with lots of details on Grenada's history, heritage, and culture. But just to read a little bit about what took place on March the night of March 2nd, 1795. So Julien Fedon and his forces surrounded the town of Grenville, where they captured and put to death 11 British inhabitants. Also, at the same time in Gouyave, another group of persons led by Joachim Philip and Etienne Ventoux captured about 40 British residents, including one doctor, Dr. John Hay, and one priest, Reverend Francis Mahon, who were taken to Belvidere, where they were kept captive. Two other persons, the British Lieutenant Governor at the time, Ninian Home, and Alexander Campbell, were also captured and at Guelph. So two activities took place on the night. So there was some forces that went to Grenville and captured British inhabitants there. And then the next set of forces went to Guelph, where they captured governor at the time, Ninian Home. Grenada had a lieutenant governor. So before independence, the residing British head of state, if you want to call it that, um, was lieutenant governor. That was the official title. So during the Fedon's Rebellion of 1795, that period of time, the governor was Ninian Home. He was the lieutenant governor representing the British head of state in Grenada. So he was captured in Guave by a group of forces, of course, under Julien Fedon's leadership, among several others, including John Hay, who was a doctor in Guave at the time, and one priest, Reverend Francis McMahon, was also captured in Guave on that night. Right, so that began the events of the Fedon's Rebellion on March 3rd, 1795. So that's our learning today in terms of Julien Fedon, who he was. And next week we'll continue looking at some of the details of what actually took place during Fedon Rebellion from the 3rd March 1795 to June 19th, 1796, when the rebellion ended. So that's going to be our program next week. In a nutshell, Julien Fedon was a free mulatto, an estate owner who sought to free Grenada and become an independent Black republic in 1795. Had Julien Fedon been successful, Grenada would have created history within the Caribbean region to become the first free Black independent republic, even before Haiti. Haiti has the historical record today because they, under Toussaint Louverture, did become the first free Black independent nation within the Caribbean, the Western Hemisphere, and the world, to be exact. But that's only because Julien Fedon was not successful in his attempt to create such an history in Grenada. So we had to wait until 1974 to achieve independence and become free from rule of colonial powers. But we acknowledge and recognize the efforts of Julien Fedon and the Fedon Rebellion because it does create that historical record of a first attempt to bring across independence to Grenada and for Grenada to be free of colonial rule in 1795. So we're going to take a short break here and we'll be right back and we'll talk a little bit about, I'll show you a bit, of course, our website, Island Learning Grenada's website, and talk a bit of course, our school program. Right, so we are back. We are back with the program. So let's go to our website. So at Island Learning Grenada, we do have a website. Of course, having our website provides us with a digital footprint. Uh, it's a resource that you can check out 24/7 if you're looking for more information on Grenada's history, heritage, and culture. So I'm going to show you our website. Just give me one moment. So this is our website. The feed is gonna go. We're back. That's a little stop in the internet here. Um, so our website, you can check out our website. It's www.islandlearning.gd. We do have a Grenada specific domain name as we support, of course, the GD domain that is promoted by the local telecommunications agency in Grenada. So our website www.islandlearning.gd. I'm going to note it in the comments so that you can and pin it to the comments. So that's our website www.islandlearning.gd is the website. So on our website, two things I'm just gonna show you today. Two things, that's all. So if you are interested in our online courses, so we have online courses on Grenada's history, heritage, and culture. They are suitable for children. Children can take them alone our families can take them. So if you want to learn about Grenada's history and heritage and culture with your child, you can take our online courses and virtual classes. Our virtual classes are via Zoom and we'll schedule a time and connect with you and your family, and you can take the learning on Grenada's history, heritage, and culture right in the privacy of your home, whether you are in Grenada or you are in the diaspora, UK, Canada, anywhere in the USA, it doesn't matter. We'll connect with you via Zoom, and the session is usually 1 hour in length. And we'll talk about Grenada's history, heritage, and culture and share learning. There are interactive activities for the child as well as for conversations for the adult. So that's our virtual classes. We facilitate it via Zoom. If you are interested in our virtual classes, you can just hit register right here on our homepage of our website and just register for our virtual classes. When you register, I will reach out to you and contact you with the information and finish the process. So the virtual classes, we are charging for them. It's a service that we are providing to Grenadian families on island and of course in the diaspora who are interested in learning more about their history, heritage, and culture through classes with us at Island Learning Grenada. So that's one simple way. Just click the register and you just register information. So if I hit the register here, easily there's a form, you fill out the form, right? You could register either yourself or your child. You complete the registration process and we'll reach out to you and connect you with a time slot so we can have the classes, right? So that's our virtual classes offering for Grenadian families in Grenada and the Grenadian diaspora, whether you're in the New York, you in Washington, D.C., Maryland, you're in Montreal, Toronto, Edmonton, you're in the UK, London, anywhere you are, right? And you're interested in your family, second generation, first generation, learning more about their heritage and their culture and their history. That's what our classes provide. I teach the classes myself. Through via Zoom. So that's our first offering, um, virtual classes via Zoom. We also have a blog where we're posting a lot of content on Grenada's history, heritage, and culture. On our website, it's this tab right here. It's called Island Blog. Just hit on that tab, and this is our blog page. So there's lots of information on Grenada. We're continuing to build our content in terms of Grenada's history, heritage, and culture. So we have breaking the barrel, which is a tradition done in Carriacou in honor of dead soldiers. So we've highlighted that. So there's information on that. We have about the Shakespeare Mass. This is a tradition done during Carriacou Carnival. So we have information on Shakespeare Mass. We have about eating using calabash bowls, which is a tradition in the serving of food done still in Grenada. The greasy pole, that's part of the regatta celebrations. That's done in Carriacou and PT Martinique. Dancing of the flag, dancing of the cake. So these are some of the tangible heritage, but just general culture and heritage aspects of Grenada. It's captured nicely on our website. You hit on any of the posts and learn lots more information about any aspect of Grenada's history, heritage, and culture. We have featured lots of topics. We have horse racing, which used to be a sport done in Grenada many, many years ago. And it's no longer done, but it's one of the historical sports that was done in Grenada, particularly in Telescope St. Andrews and also in River Road. There was a horse racing track in River Road, St. George's. So horse racing actually used to be a defined sport in Grenada. Folk spirits, all about the Laja Bless and the Baku spirits and Mabuya spirit, those folk spirits that we grew up with as children. Um and still today are relevant. People still talk about Laja Bless and Makuya and all those things. We there's information on folk spirits. Calendar stick fighting. This tradition is now extinct, but it used to be part of during carnival celebrations, the stick fighting, which is a practice done among villages where men in villages would compete against each other in stick fighting. So that's a tradition that is now extinct, but still part of our heritage and history. A bit about Carriacou and the early beginnings of Carriacou. Some of the traditions associated with Grenadian Christmas, so the sorrel, the ginger beer, the black cake, all those things are captured in a write up about Grenadian Christmas traditions. We have about the steel pan and how steel pan got started in Grenada. So steel pan was started by a gentleman called William Dewsbury, who saw the practice of steel pan being done in Trinidad and brought it to Grenada. Some do argue that steel pan started in Grenada first and then Trinidad took it, but that's grapevine, right? What we don't know is that the official commencement of the steel pan was started due to the contributions of Williams Dewsbury, who lived in Trinidad and brought the practice to Grenada. And that started Angel Haps, which is one of the oldest bands existing in Grenada as a steel band, later followed by the Comancheros band, who's also one of the older existing steel band orchestras on island. So we talked there about steel band, the sweet sound of pan steel band, breadfruit. Breadfruit, the main ingredient in our oil long breadfruit, was brought to the Caribbean by William Bligh from Tahiti. He brought it first to the island of St. Vincent, and we got breadfruit from the breadfruit plants from St. Vincent. Those that That's how the start of breadfruit came to Grenada. It came actually from the neighboring St. Vincent, and we know today we still continue to get breadfruit from St. Vincent. Although I may argue that Grenada has the best breadfruit, right? Our breadfruit sweetest compared to what you get in St. Vincent. The best oil to eat is one with a local Grenadian breadfruit. Um, Quadrille. So quadrille is a music and dance. It's both a music and dance done in Trinidad. So in Trinidad, in Carriacou, sorry, where's my tongue there? In Carriacou and Petit Martinique, the sister isles. So quadrille music, which is a type of string band music, and the dancing of itself is a practice of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, and we capture information on the origin and the performance of the quadrille dance in this blog post here. Big drop dancing, we capture that too as well. That's another one out of Carriacou. Well, Carriacou and Petit Martinique are the mecca for culture in Grenada. When you look at culture and heritage, Carriacou, the whole of Carriacou and Petit Martinique is really where the mecca of that of those traditions lie, right? So big drum dance, the Parang Festival, we capture information about the Parang, how it's done, how it started, everything like that. Um, the 3 days of the Parang Festival, what takes place on each day. That information is nicely captured in our blog here. Grenadian coconut confectionery, so the coconut candy, the chip, etc. We capture that information here too as well. Traditional herbal remedies. So the lemongrass tea, the black sage tea, um, and all those bush teas that we drink for all the different ailments you can think of. We capture them here on the two blog posts, Herbal Remedies Part 1 and Part 2. So lots of content we have on our website, and you can check out our website www.islandlearning.gd and learn lots more about Grenada's history, heritage, and culture. A little bit about the revolution and the achievements. The tonka bean spice, that's a spice that's not widely known, but it's a great spice if you're baking cakes, right? It has a nice aroma and it gives the cakes a nice, awesome flavor to taste, right? So the tonka bean spice, Janet houses, right? So that was a house that came after the 1955 Hurricane Janet. So there's still a couple scattered across the island today, the Janet House. But the Janet House is actually one architectural model that as we talk about the creative industry, that we can look at in terms of getting some kind of intellectual property protection for the Janet House and replicating the model. When I say replicating, we can replicate the model and have and put the architectural blueprint for sale. So that's an idea that can be done under the creative industry for those in the architecture field, the Janet House. And yes, so lots here. We have bamboo, tambu, Tombstone Feast, Cambole, Maple Dancing. So check out our website, www.islandlearning.gd. Check out the blog there and get lots of information about Grenada's history and heritage, nicely captured information researched. We always research our information and use multiple sources to ensure that the information contained on our blog is accurate. So check out our website www.islandlearning.gd and all the information possible about Grenada's history, heritage, and culture. And we're continuing to build upon the content there on a weekly basis to ensure that we have more information shared publicly on the web, digitally, on Grenada's history, heritage, and culture. We are in a digital era, and there's the whole promotion of digitalization and being online. And we want to be part of the digital movement too as well. And lastly, before we wrap up here today, just a little bit about good night, Mr. Holloway. I don't want to pronounce your name wrongly, but Mr. Holloway, Altilbert Holloway, good night to you. Thank you for viewing the program tonight. Hope that you found it very informative and educational about Julien Fedon. If you are interested in learning more about the Fedon's Rebellion, of course, you can check out this book by Mr. Herman Hall, Belvidere Estate Fedon's House. This is one of two books written by Mr. Herman Hall on Julien Fedon and the Fedon's Rebellion. There's another book that came out last year too as well. That is on. I'll share it next week. That book on Julien Fedon and the Fedon's Rebellion. So this is the book if you are interested in having a physical book about the Fedon's Rebellion. So just as we wrap up, we'll take a quick break, our last break, and be right back with the wrap up of our program here today. So we'll be right back after this short commercial break.